Welcome back, everyone, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BETSPERTS. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christenson, and joining me, as always, the only person in Canada allowed inside of Tim Hortons, Mr. Andy Molitor. How did you get up there? Do you have like a secret underground tunnel to Timmy H's?
You know, I've brought this up before, and looks like I'm going to actually drop Matt here because his camera's being goofy. There, it's back. There were like 5 Tim Hortons in Minneapolis that just didn't work. Like people like, we like Dunkin', like we like Starbucks. We're not buying your weird Canadian Java. So no, but yeah, speaking of Canada, I had this up last night. Like this is a classic, one of the ones I won't ever delete from our banks in there for backgrounds because I do love the abandoned Timmies. But yeah, Matt Russell joining us again as we playoff hockey, not only playoff hockey, but I'm like undefeated in playoff hockey. I'm sitting on a Carolina 20-1, a Carolina 18-1. Wow. So I'm a big Canes fan, but also I made a joke last night as I was trying to find something along the lines of like the old series prices, series totals they would have where you could bet like, Canes in a sweep. I did end up finding that, but I was looking for it in a certain book and all they had was like alt lines. So I bet Canes -2.5 at like +315 and didn't really actually pay attention to the second half of the game. And sure enough, I think it was an empty netter, cash turn empty netter. So again, I continue to win bets in sports that I don't really bet. Sometime that's coming for me eventually, but right now, I'm running hot in hockey. How have you? It's been a few days already, so we started over the weekend. How's your playoff hockey been going so far?
Great, actually. Yeah, we've been spending the entire regular season. I think last time I was on with you guys, we talked about the variance, the randomness, just the brutalness of 3-on-3 and shootout, right? To settle some of these bets where we make, we build our handicap on 5-on-5 play, and then all of a sudden we just have this race of 3-on-3 and then the shootout. Well, guess what? We're back to 5-on-5 overtime, and 3-1 in those overtimes. Basically, every game's gone to overtime, so we're sitting on a razor's edge here a little bit. But nice to see, at least at the start, that the handicapping that we're doing with regards to 5-on-5 play actually translates to overtime. So when you get to that point, you're not sitting there going like, oh, like I can't believe, 2-on-1 after 2-on-1. You actually have to generate a high danger chance in order to score in overtime. So that's worked out here a little bit as we've started here. But it's been incredibly fun. You guys are fired up. We got Tim Hortons on Hockey Flow right now. You look like you've just put in a 2-minute penalty kill at this point with the beard and the flow. Like Andy, you got more of like an assistant. You got more of like an assistant coach vibe right now. So maybe you and Noobs have been working on your penalty kill a little bit over the last few days. But I dig it, and yeah, it's been going really, really well here.
Now, Andy mentioned he's got a Carolina ticket. You and I were talking before the show. I've got a Tampa Bay ticket. It looks like one of us might end up being happy. Which one of us has a better chance, in your opinion? Who should be more excited?
Yeah, so I describe this as listen, guys, who's your favorite actress? Because, this is a Lawrence Robbie situation, right? Where we got Jennifer Lawrence. That's the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Big, everybody saw them coming, winning awards like 8-10 years ago. But now everybody loves the Carolina Hurricanes, right? And, they're kind of the hot thing. They're Margot Robbie in The Wolf of Wall Street. And so both are really good. I would watch any of them do anything at this point. Bad news is, in the case of the hockey version of this example, we got to deal with these two teams in the next round. So, Carolina's got the easier run into the next round. I don't think Florida is necessarily dead for Tampa Bay yet. So, that's a bit problematic. Obviously, I'd rather a Carolina 20-1 ticket. If I had to rob one of you of your futures tickets, I would probably take the Carolina one just based on value. But listen, this Tampa Bay team, it's got a lot of people scared. And I think that's one of the more interesting games tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that. We'll see how it goes, Andy. So that'll be fun for us if they both make it through to the next round. So go ahead, Andy.
Well, and yeah, and I looked at adding other futures as well, and then I realized like once you do the there's going to be reseeding after the first 2 rounds, and I just threw my hands up and I said I'm done. Like the amount of uncertainty, I don't even know. Like you could possibly model all the different permutations of that, but then you're looking at so many different things from so many different pods. You have all the different possibilities from the 4 pods because they can change, you have one low seed that comes out of a pod and it changes the matchup. All of a sudden the team that you wanted to be against a lower seed was end up playing a better team in the semifinals. So I'm just steering away from that. I'm sticking to my Carolina bets. I'm just one down, 15 to go. We ride on.
Yeah, Carolina's in a good spot, right?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say Carolina's in a good spot because they are in that reseeding. They're tucked nicely underneath those 2 teams in the West, Colorado and Vegas. And so, we come into the playoffs, everybody always looks for the underdog because it's the NHL playoffs and the underdogs win. But it's really more of, and I have this sort of theory, underdogs early, favorites late, right? Because you're going to see teams that pull off upsets in the first round. But I actually think the whole reseeding thing kind of creates a little more certainty in a weird way for the Colorado Avalanche. And I think that actually created some value going into this playoff because people kind of skip past that first level and they get into that second tier and they're like, which of these double digit, futures do I want to take a play on here? You kind of skip past Colorado and they've got it set up the best because they're going to face whatever Cinderella team. You're right. There's going to be one of them that comes out of the first 2 rounds. They're going to face that team. A lot of years, you're right, that Cinderella team, they just happen to face, whoever's in the East or the West, whatever, conference they're in. And they're sitting there now going like, oh, we have to play like the best team possible if we survive our first 2 rounds. I think that sets up nicely for Colorado. And so this, I think, is a year where, you'd want to grab a Colorado future at plus 500, plus 450 before the tournament started. It's going to dip a little bit here, but I think it's still kind of in range. And we saw last night that Colorado is a force to be reckoned with. And I think has a easier path than the market necessarily thinks that they do.
Yeah, I watched some preview. Yeah, I watched a few previews and tried to catch up and figure out, like I said the other day, I was even to the point where I was confused thinking that Vancouver was in the playoffs because of what was on, like I go to the score bug. I'm like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I did try to catch up a little and boy, yeah, that's like everybody's team. Everybody has Colorado in the finals. That's such a tough. I mean, the very tough second round match against the Wild, but it'll be fine. I guess they can get past them. I'm just penciling them in now. I'm calling Vegas dead at this point. I believe they play. That's the late game, and maybe that's why I didn't pay attention to Colorado. It was the late game. I was in bed.
Yeah, it was a struggle, and fortunately we were able to get to bed a little bit early once they took a 2-goal lead because St. Louis wasn't coming back. Man, I love your Wild. I've got series price on the Wild at plus 215. I was on them in game 1. I think we can talk about that game if you like tonight, but that's part of it, right? I think Colorado, there's at least a decent chance that Colorado faces the Wild in round 2, which kind of takes out what everybody thinks is like the dream matchup against Vegas. Well, we don't often get that dream matchup, right? We don't get it ever in March Madness. We almost never get it in the Super Bowl. There's no guarantees we're going to get it here. And obviously Minnesota getting game 1, really a must-win game here tonight for Vegas. But, again, that makes that road a little bit more paved for Colorado if the Wild are able to do that. And again, like I'm backing the Wild. I think there's a real chance that they win that series.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have the measure of success against Colorado as they had against Vegas, obviously, but it's not like the Wild are a bad team, but still, Colorado's probably the best team out in the West, or maybe, I think the markets would agree. Are they just betting favorite? Like pretty much chalk everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's some places here in Canada that will have the Leafs as the favorite, but that is just a blatant homerism and just taking Leaf money in hand over fist. But that's recreational book, just nonsense basically. But yeah, I mean, Vegas is right behind Colorado, and that's I think helped to create some of that value on Colorado in that Vegas is so close to them in the big picture, but also in the same division.
Sure. Let's get into tonight's games. And I am looking at the same score bug, and I am going to just skip over the Flames and Canucks game, who have another couple games. Apparently, that game. There was 14 goals in the last one, but we will skip over that. Islanders took a 1-0 lead. We know a couple Islanders fans. They're very fatalist. Like they're very, very sure they're always going to lose. I proclaimed my favorite player was Cal Clutterbuck. If I had to draft one player to start my team with last night. So I guess I'm a secondhand Islanders fan, but yeah, they got it done. Penguins are still a decent favorite tonight. Did we see a lot of that? We're just like the game ones didn't go the way we thought they were gonna, and how does that affect, especially these games that are like, this is, I didn't realize too, it was still 2-2, 1-1-1. I thought it was like 2-3-2 series. So it's like, man, this is important. If you drop the second one at home, like the Penguins are kind of dead.
Yeah, and I frame these two games, both that the Vegas game and the Penguins game, as kind of the same thing, right? Where I have both series prices on the Isles and the Wild. They're sort of my two underdog plays for these series. So obviously I was on them in game one. And as you guys know, the price isn't going to change from one game to the next, right? The price is going to get beat into position. The Wild opened plus 155 in that first game, jumped all over that. It was plus 135 by the time the puck dropped. And so now you see there's been a little bit of adjustment back towards plus 140, 145 in, probably because it's like, between Pittsburgh needing to win and Vegas needing to win, they're not going to make that huge adjustment just because one team won in overtime, because the reality is it's the NHL and these teams are really, really evenly matched. And so I'll ask you guys, when it comes to, we get into the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, and you'd be betting series prices along with your game prices. I'm obviously looking to grab game ones because I think they're mispriced, right? In the same way that I think the series is mispriced. But we get to game two, and it's almost like I don't even really want to bet the Isles or the Wild, even if I think that there's an edge here, because I've already invested into the series price. And if they can take these two road games to start, then I'm sitting pretty. Like, where do you guys stand with kind of just going back to the well, kind of no matter what? If, say, the Blazers take the first game and you've got the Blazers in a series price in the NBA, are you just going right back in, or are you sitting back going, like, if we could take this second game, that's pretty much all I need to see here when it comes to my series bet. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. I try to separate the two. I guess I always have tried to separate the two. If there's value, I'd bet it. Like if my numbers say there's value, I would bet it. Anybody modeling or making their own numbers. But at the same time, I kind of say that, like, if there's value, bet it, but there's likely not going to be, just because they do get these prices pretty close to where they should be, and there's not a big change. Unless you think a team is just going to be completely mispriced for an entire series, then you're probably going to bet them every single game. So it's almost a case of you're betting game one, it gets adjusted properly, and then you're done. You're betting no games, or you're betting every single game because you just can't understand why the market disagrees so strongly with you. So that's probably where I'm at. And the NBA is a little different because it is less of a money line, but it's not a money line sport like hockey or baseball. You can bet some spreads in there where you can say that the money line and spread are correlated, but not always completely, where you can say, like, I do think these spreads are a little big, even though this underdog might get swept.
Yeah, so I think, like, the Islanders and the Wild, like, they still have some value. It's obviously come off a little bit. But I also, and I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I also make an adjustment if a team has lost in the previous game in the playoffs. Like, I consider that very, almost more important than like home ice advantage, right? Because again, we're all just kind of guessing what home ice advantage, home field advantage, home court advantage might mean when it comes to these different matchups. For me, it's the same thing with regards to, like, did you lose the last game, or in this case, the first game at home? Like, I expect Pittsburgh to come out like a house on fire tonight. Same thing with Vegas. Does that mean they're going to actually win the game? No, we saw it with Boston yesterday. Does it mean you're going to win the game? No, you probably find yourself in overtime the same way that you did in game one. But from a metric standpoint, their expected goals for 5-on-5 doubled from the first game to the second game. So that means something. And why did it double? I mean, I'd like to think because they were, quote unquote, and it's, narrative based or cliche, but I'd like to think it was because they were the more desperate team. But again, does that get you anywhere? It got them to overtime and they ended up winning in overtime. But for me, looking at the metrics, like, their 5-on-5 numbers were so much better than game one because they needed to be. And so you just kind of hope that the chips fall your way there if you're looking to kind of predict that situation, right? And so I bet the Bruins again, going like, I think they're going to have more high danger chances. They're going to have more expected goals. Whether the puck goes in or not, kind of out of my hands, I think, at that point, right? So that's the situation for those two games. But the Florida and Tampa game tonight, I think, is the more interesting one, because Florida got themselves in trouble when they forked over a ton of cash for a goaltender by the name of Sergei Bobrovsky. And then they found out like less than a year into that massive investment that he's not actually that good. And so what's happened for the Panthers this season is their backup goaltender has like come up out of nowhere. And throughout the season, like whispers turned into conversation. He's kind of better. And so what do, right? You spent $50 million on a guy, but you're going to sit him in game one? Well, they didn't. And Tampa took advantage of that. And I don't know that we're necessarily blaming Bobrovsky for that loss in game one. You know, Tampa scored 3 out of their 4 power plays, right? And they scored a shorthanded goal. That's kind of an outlier type situation. Well, Florida goes, you know what? That's enough. That's all we needed to see. We're going to the backup, Chris Driedger. And I think that's making tonight's game probably the most interesting on the board because everybody's looking at Tampa Bay and going, man, like they're back. Kucherov and Stamkos, you know, Kucherov sat out the whole season, a little controversy there. But, you know, everybody's looking at this team going like defending Stanley Cup champions, like have their guys back. But again, from a metric standpoint, they didn't have the advantage 5-on-5 in that first game. And they came back from 4-3 down to win 5-4. But again, the even strength metrics didn't favor Tampa Bay. They got 4 special teams goals, right? It's like getting 2 special teams touchdowns in a football game and then expecting to replicate that the next day. So you're getting Florida with a better goaltender, a more solid goaltender at this point, which I think obviously means that there's some value on Florida. We've seen the price move from plus 110 to minus 105 because of it. So this isn't like, you know, breaking news necessarily, but in a money line sport, like what matters is do they win or do they not? And we're talking about a 15-cent line move, kind of right around even money. So like I would still bet it at minus 105. I have still bet at minus 105. And the other interesting thing is the total has moved up because they scored 9 goals in that game collectively. And so the total's gone from 5.5 up to 6, but we're actually getting a better goaltender for Florida in this second game. So I think a little bit of an over adjustment there. And so I'd be looking at under 6 as far as a total is concerned in this game, and I'm betting Florida minus 105, even minus 110 if you find it there. Anything sort of near pick'em. I think Florida evens the series tonight against Tampa Bay.
Beautiful. And Andy, we can't hear you for some reason. You might be muted.
Oh, I'm muted because I was typing very loudly. But yeah, I was going to say I kind of wanted to bet that under before I even said it, just because of the, you know, like if we're going to put in a better goaltender and there's a shitload of goals and also like just the narrative. Oh, it's a really, really good team and they won the cup last year. So I'm down with that. Yeah, before we let you go, tell people where they can find your stuff. I'll put your Twitter handle up on here. But
yeah,
you do a podcast as well. It's right behind you.
That's right. Well, you can find it at BETSPERTS, _window_podcast, but you can find the Window podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, the whole gang. Daily podcast, not unlike this one, obviously a little bit content, you know, different, focus a little bit more on hockey, obviously football, basketball, once we get, you know, those things rolling around again. And had a little NBA preview today out there. So you can check that out over at the Window Sports Betting Podcast.
So, and I put a banner up, but I guess if you're listening to a podcast, maybe I should. It's M-Russ Authentic, MRUSS Authentic on Twitter. And we thank Matt for joining us. And yeah, best of luck with all your hockey and everything you're betting. And yeah, follow him over there. Check out the Window podcast. Check him out on BETSPERTS. And yeah, let's go. I don't know, which team do you need to win? Doesn't matter. Go
Wild,
Canes,
man. The Wild. Come on.
Okay, go Wild. I guess they'll meet later on. Whatever, we'll get there. Go Canes for now for me, but yes, thanks a lot, Matt, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, fellas. Pleasure as always.
Mr. Noops has been doing some digging overnight as we started to talk about how my bet ended up because I was looking for a series bet. And you found a bunch of fun stuff in the playoff series for the NBA. I'm going to pull this up now. I don't love the formatting. I might have to yell at the developers over there too. I yell at the BETSPERTS developers, but I'm going to yell at the WinBet developers too. Like I hate these long, like they put so much space in there to make it so small. But as you can see,
separate boxes. There should be an option like series price. There's all of them.
Yeah. So it's just it must be hard. Some of the series prices, and obviously we don't have all of them. There's some, you know, we have to have the play-ins yet, but yeah, the Heat getting about 2-1 against the Bucks. The Knicks, Hawks is about even. Nuggets, Blazers, even-ish. Nuggets a little bit favored, and then obviously the Clippers big favorite over the Mavs. But you had a look on a series handicap you wanted to hit on real quick. Or no, it was an exact series price.
Exact series price. And I do have another one. I don't know if you saw I added it late, but we can just talk about that one. I'll put a banner. But yeah, those series prices in general, they've moved around just a little bit. You know, if you grab the Heat at open, I think there was some plus 270s, plus 280s out there. They're just tough series prices to wrap my head around. Miami coming in really, really flat. You know, as I start to look at some of my numbers, I think there was actually some value on the Milwaukee number. It got close to, I think, minus 230, 240 at one point. But they started to settle at a point where that price looks right to me. I keep seeing tweets about the Knicks being plus money in that series somewhere. If you have that, you should play that for a little bit. I don't have that. I haven't seen it. I don't know where it is. Maybe someone's just lying on the internet. That's perfectly fine. But as I start to look at that series specifically with the Knicks, I think there's a lot of value in this price here on the Knicks to win the series 4-3. That basically means that they're going to win in New York in Game 7. As I start to look at the back and forth here, I see a really competitive series. I see a series where home teams, I think, are going to be really comfortable and probably win most of those games. The Knicks have been good against the Hawks, but the Hawks are finally starting to get healthy here. They'll have some time to kind of get everybody right. From a matchup perspective, you know, I think it'll be interesting to see how Trae Young does against the Knicks guards. Yes, the Knicks have very talented guards, but defensively, you know, they're not the most fantastic players in the world. But you know, we've got two teams here. They've got rim protectors. You know, Julius Randle, I think, should do really nice. At the same time, Bogdanovic might be able to do well on the other side. Again, just a very competitive series. And as I look at it, I think I'm just going to be looking to back the teams at home for most of these games. We'll see. I haven't gotten myself to the point of betting the Knicks in Game 1 yet, but really like this look at 4-3, plus 450. I'd have this closer to plus 350 myself. So plus 400 or better looks good to me. I'll play that for, I think I put half a unit on that one.
I like an exact score price. And yes, I did find your other one. It was our Trailblazers laying a game and a half in a closely lined series. You're going to lay a game and a half. You're saying, you know, 4-2, 4-1, or a sweep, God forsake, which would be something wild. But it's basically Blazers win, doesn't go 7.
Yeah, Blazers in 4-2 or better. You know, we basically we get a win here if the Blazers win at home in Game 6. You know, remember, make sure you go back and look to see what the different scenarios are. You know, as I talked about with Knicks 4-3, that means the Knicks win in Game 7 in Madison Square Garden. I think the Blazers can close this series out in Game 6 or sooner. The Nuggets, without Jamal Murray, really don't have the guards to cover both McCollum and Dame Lillard at the same time. You know, guys like Norm Powell, guys like Carmelo Anthony, not the big name he used to be, but I think those guys will find a lot of success against some of the Nuggets wings. Yusuf Nurkic is someone that is competitive with Jokic. They used to be teammates. I think that series is going to be a really tough one for Denver, again, without Jamal Murray. So happy to back the Blazers here. You know, again, I don't love them from a series price perspective, so I tend to find more value in some of these derivatives. So we'll go Knicks 4-3, Blazers minus 1.5 games, plus 190. This one, again, I would make close to like plus 150. So play that down to like plus 175.
And we have a surprise to end the show. Bit of a surprise. This is Noops hit me right before the show and said, get a banner ready. It's like, we don't have prices yet, but I'm going to make a bet. And it's our girl. It's Coco. Corey Goff. Just opened up. It's not open everywhere. Very limited spots where you can bet this. In fact, where you bet this, you have a 19.5. I put a 20 up because I feel like it's trending that way anyway. You bet a 19.5 minus 120. Coco and Camilla Giorgi. So, I mean, assuming you're fine with a 20.
Yeah, you know, as always, I try to talk about what I would play these up to because I know the offerings here can be pretty variable. Certain books have really nice totals offerings, others do not. I'm just trying to look up and see what it is other places. Again, I was able to get a 19.5. I expect this to be 20.5 most places. You know, as I start to look right now, you know, a couple other books that not a lot of people have access to. You know, 20.5 looks like it opened. You know, just about there. So 20.5 even juice is good. 21.5 at a little less than standard juice is just fine by me. The over 2.5 sets was actually able to do a little better than this, but again, I expect it to be in the plus 180 or plus 185 range when it does open up everywhere else. I would play this down to plus 165, plus 160. I think that Camilla Giorgi here is a player that is very up and down. She has played pretty good in that first match. I think she could be competitive. We've seen Goff be comfortable in getting into 7-5, 7-6 sets. I'm actually going to look at some point when derivatives start to open up on this. Yes, on a tiebreaker, if you have that at plus 200 or better, and I think we might get a plus 250 or something like that when it does open, that's going to be a nice look. So we're going to play our Goff Giorgi's over. We're going back to the stack. Yeah, Kyle mentioned there Bovada's plus 195. So that's where it is open right now. If you have access to Bovada, that's where the 19.5 and the plus 195 is. But to try to be fair to everyone else, again, 20.5 at standard juice is great. 2.5 sets, play that down to plus 160. Really like both of these numbers. I think we'll see a competitive match here.
What a way to close the show with our Corey Goff. And the best part about this, too, is like, and yeah, surfaces will change and whatever, but it's one of those that you can play all year. Like, as long as the numbers don't go to hell on us, there's always going to be women's tennis totals that we can stack up. So I enjoy that for sure. I don't know. I really, like you said, I doubt it's up at WinBet, but if you can find that, that's a good way to use your $500 risk-free bet. Links are in the pinned tweet. Follow us at BrownBagBets on Twitter. If you're in the YouTube, give me a thumbs up because that's my lifeblood. I'm sustained by thumbs up and Twitter likes. It's the only thing that keeps me going throughout the day. Do it for me. Don't let me wither away. So otherwise, nice haircuts. We'll call her a day. Golf guest tomorrow. Basketball guest Thursday. Probably a baseball guest Friday. We'll just do a bunch of different sports. Lean on other people. I'm gonna have Approaching the Green tonight. Deep dive tomorrow. We did deep dive last night with some more hockey talk. We'll do deep dive NBA playoffs version tomorrow. So a lot more content this week. And thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for hopping in the chat, everyone but Kyle. And we'll catch you. Real quick, Bet365 has 19.5 on Goff. I know that is one of those that's very tough. If you have a
19.5, play that for a little more. That's like a 1.5, 2 unit play for me.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number. I was surprised because I asked, would you be okay with the 20? He's like, I'd love a 20. So
20. Right. But yes, 20.5. I was like 20.5. That sounds fine. 19.5.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. So yeah, 19.5 killer. Let's pound it. 2 unit play for me. Whatever. Let's get weird. Women's tennis. Overnight. When is that match, real quick, before I hit the music?
That'll be early in the morning tomorrow, Eastern time. Again, the order of play is not quite out, but that should be tomorrow. I think the earliest time has been 5, maybe 6 in the morning, Eastern.
I want it to be before I wake up. That's better. Then I don't sweat it. So, all right. Well, either way, I'll bet it either way, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.